smells of Hubba Bubba gum, leaded gasoline, and the distinct ozone-heavy scent of a tube television warming up. Kids around the neighborhood are losing their absolute minds. Why? Because the Atari 2600 is king in a brand new rogue-style studio called Activision has just burst onto the scene. Before this moment, video games were mostly about blasting space aliens or avoiding blocky green monsters. But Activision decided to ask a much more profound philosophical question. What if, instead of going outside into the blistering heat to get bitten by actual mosquitoes, you could sit on a shag carpet and catch digital bass with a joystick? Enter Fishing Derby. It was a game of high stakes, pixelated tension, and a deeply personal psychological war against a rogue shark. This is the story of how a few kilobytes of code turned living rooms into competitive angling arenas. It's episode number 134 on this Thursday, June 25th, 2026. I'm your host, Jason Icanio, ready to go on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Ready to go on this Thursday, June 25th, 2026, coming to the end of the month. And next week we go into the end of June into July and start our next week of continuing the Activision series right here on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. And I have a favor to ask of Susan Fit 47. If you can find me that original list of NES accessories, I'd be more than grateful to you. If you could send me another copy of it, that would be fantastic. I think I might have to go back into the comments to look at it. I might find it before you might send it. But one way or another, we're going to get this situated. Right now, we're going to be looking at Fishing Derby here on this 134th episode of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Let's delve right into it. To understand how we got here, we have to look at the legendary drama behind Activision's founding. In the late 1970s, Atari was making hundreds of millions of dollars, but they treated their programmers like hidden assembly line workers. They refused to put the creators' names on the boxes and didn't pay them royalties. Four of Atari's top programming wizards, David Crane, Alan Miller, Bob Whitehead, and Larry Kaplan, you're going to hear these names very frequently during this entire Activision series. They said enough is enough. They packed up their thick-rimmed glasses, walked out the door, and founded Activision, the world's very first third-party video game developer. Now, David Crane, a man who would later bring us Pitfall, was the mastermind behind Fishing Derby. He wanted to prove that the Atari 2600 could do things Atari's corporate bosses never dreamed of, starting with a physics-defying fishing simulator. When you booted up Fishing Derby on your wood-grain Atari console, you were greeted by a vibrant, multicolored sunset over a deep blue ocean. By 1980 standards, this was basically IMAX, and the setup was beautifully simple. Two fishermen, Player 1 in white and Player 2 in red, sat precariously on opposite ends of a dock, dangling their lines into the water. Beneath them swam 6 rows of fish, worth varying points depending on how deep they were. The deeper the fish, the heavier it was, and the more points it added to your counter. Now, the mechanic was pure arcade perfection. You dropped your line, hooked the fish, and cranked the joystick up as fast as possible. But Crane added a brilliant twist of physics. If you held down the fire button, your reel would pull the fish up at double speed, adding a frantic, button-mashing urgency to every single catch. Every great historical drama needs a villain. And Fishing Derby gave us one of the absolute greatest antagonists in early game history, the shark. This wasn't just any shark. This was a relentless, pixelated apex predator that patrolled the top layer of the water like an underwater taxman. The moment you hooked a beautiful, high-scoring 5-pound fish from the bottom of the ocean, the shark would instantly change direction. And it didn't matter how fast you smashed that Atari fire button. If your timing was off, the shark would glide over with a cold, uncaring digital crunch, devouring your prize and leaving you with absolutely nothing but a broken spirit. The shark introduced a level of couch co-op trash-talking that ruined childhood friendships and caused sibling rivalries that still haven't been resolved to this day. Activision didn't just sell you a cartridge, they sold you a lifestyle. And they knew that gamers in the 1980s craved validation. To satisfy this, they introduced the legendary Activision patch system. If you managed to score 95 points or more against the computer or a friend, you didn't just get bragging rights, you became gaming royalty. And you had to take a physical Polaroid camera, snap a blurry photo of your television screen as proof, mail it to Activision headquarters in California, and wait weeks for the mailman to arrive. When it finally showed up, you received an official embroidered Activision Anglers patch. Sewing that bad boy onto your denim jacket or corduroy backpack instantly transformed you into the coolest, most formidable gamer on the block. Decades have passed, and the Atari 2600 has retired to the grand archive of gaming history, and modern graphics have evolved into lifelike virtual reality. Yet if you walk into Jay's Retro Toys and Games today, blow the dust off an old Fishing Derby cartridge, and slide it into a heavy Sixer console, the magic is instantly reborn. The game doesn't need cinematic cutscenes, photorealistic water shaders, or online battle passes. It just needs a joystick, a friend to compete against, and the internal terrifying threat of a passing shark. Fishing Derby remains a masterclass in elegant, addictive game design, reminding us that sometimes the best adventures are the ones made of just a few pixels, a lot of imagination, and a healthy dose of nostalgia. But to truly appreciate Fishing Derby, one must understand the physical toll it took on the human body in 1980s hardware. The standard Atari CX40 joystick was a marvelous piece of engineering, but it was never designed to survive the raw, unadulterated panic of an 8-year-old trying to outrun a shark. Gamers quickly developed unique physical techniques to maximize their reeling speed. There was the palm pivot, where you slapped the palm of your hand on top of the stick and rotated your entire arm like a human blender. Then came the two-handed vice, locking the base between your knees while your fingers curiously mashed the single red button. Rumors spread like wildfire through elementary school playgrounds that pressing the button in a specific rhythmic Morse code pattern would unlock a turbo reel mode. And while entirely mythical, this urban legend resulted in thousands of broken plastic joysticks and millions of blisters that parents had to bandage up before dinner. Before the era of anonymous online matchmaking, a headset voice chat, multiplayer gaming was a deep, intimate, face-to-face psychological battlefield. Fishing Derby was the ultimate incubator for this localized warfare. And because both players shared the exact same screen and sat shoulder to shoulder on the living room floor, the game wasn't just about mechanics, it was about distraction. Players would resort to physical nudges, strategic coughing fits, or loud, sudden shouts right as their opponent hooked a valuable 5-pounder from the bottom row. A favorite high-tier strategy was the shark bait sacrifice, where a player would intentionally dangle a small 2-pound fish in front of the shark to alter its path, effectively trapping their opponent's high-value catch on the lower levels. It was a game of cold calculations, petty sabotage, and temporary alliances that dissolved the second someone reached 90 points. And one of the funniest aspects of the golden age of gaming was the massive creative chasm between a game's promotional artwork and its actual gameplay. The box art for Fishing Derby featured a beautifully painted, dramatic scene of two rugged, flannel-wearing outdoorsmen out on a rustic wooden pier wrestling gigantic muscular fish out of roaring ocean waves under a dramatic corporate sunset. It looked like an advertisement for a high-end sports fishing magazine, and then you plug the cartridge in, flip the heavy black power switch on your console, and were greeted by two blocky, abstract neon shapes that looked like floating lawn chairs, dropping straight vertical lines into an ocean made of solid blue bars. Yet nobody cared. The human brain in 1980 acted as the ultimate graphics card, instantly translating those simple, fish-flashing pixels into a high-stakes, life-or-death maritime adventure. And if you had a craving for pickles while playing Fishing Derby, you were even more special, probably. From a technical perspective, when David Crane achieved with Fishing Derby is nothing short of a digital miracle. You know, the entire game, including the logic for the fish, artificial intelligence, the movement of the shark, the two-player controls, the physics of the fishing lines, the color cycling sunset background, and the sound effects, had to fit into just 2 kilobytes of ROM. To put that into perspective, a single modern emoji takes up more digital storage space than the entire world of Fishing Derby. Crane had to manipulate the Atari's notoriously difficult television interface chip, forcing it to draw multiple independent moving objects on the screen simultaneously without causing the entire display to violently flicker. Every single line of assembly code had to serve multiple purposes. It was an era where programmers weren't just software designers, they were digital blacksmiths, hammering raw logic out of incredibly restrictive silicon. As the decades rolled on, the physical artifacts of this foundational era of interactive entertainment are slowly disappearing, making places like Jay's Retro Toys and Games vital sanctuaries for cultural preservation. Finding a copy of Fishing Derby today isn't just about grabbing a cheap piece of plastic, it's about holding a tangible piece of the rebellious spark that created the modern video game industry. And collectors search through bins for the distinct, stylishly minimalist black Activision cartridges, examining the labels for the inevitable act of God blemishes like ancient marker ink writing a childhood name across the top, or the classic glue discoloration spots known to the community as Acti-Plaque. For those lucky enough to find a pristine, cardboard-boxed copy complete with the original instruction manual, which featured actual tips on real-world fishing safety alongside strategies for dodging the digital shark, it represents a holy grail of an era when video games were simple, pure, and unapologetically fun. And there you have it, friends. Fishing Derby in all of its glory on this edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. We hope you will have a fantastic weekend. We will see you on Tuesday for the final day of June 30th. That wraps up the month of June, and Season 5 continues on in its 5th anniversary with episode number 135. This Tuesday, coming up on the continuation of the Activision series. I'm Jason Icanio. Remember, to be honest, be real, keep it simple, stupid. Yes. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.